Welcome back to session 51. At the time of this recording, you probably could hear the rain uh, outside my windows, which was constantly a sort of epic subject for ancient Chinese poems. I'm pretty sure even in contemporary China today, listening to raindrops is somehow somewhat felt poetic, if you will. Except for in this case, I hope it's not annoying for this recording, at least for some of you. So anyway, in the last two sessions, we covered the 9 Chinese characters of the second paragraph of Dao De Jing, which I like to repeat in Chinese first, as always. That was 故有无相生，难易相成。So that was basically talking about whatever existed, or not, or have or not. Basically, it's all by comparison, and what is difficult, what is what is easy. It's all just a matter of perspective. So after those 9 Chinese characters, followed by 8 more, which is, and here we go again in Chinese first. 长短相形，高下相迎。So longer or shorter, it's just a matter of measurement. Of course, you have some, I guess, today people talk about KPI, basically you could measure to tell the difference. So nevertheless, you could tell longer from shorter, right? And then we have, that roaring of thunders. Wow. So, sorry for the distraction. That was not within my power, though. I couldn't control that. And that was, I was talking about the, longer could be told, from shorter, only with a measurement. And of course, if you elect not to measure, longer, shorter. And then follow that, of course, is the better, in certain techniques. This is, in Chinese, 高下, actually, it's like, let's come to a contest, come to a showdown, so that, we can tell who's better. That is basically, the 2 Chinese characters, the kanji, used, to tell, who is better. And that, of course, literally in the Chinese character in Dao De Jing, it says all this, better or not so, well, I guess, to tell the difference. Basically, it's all, within the same, I guess, scope. And if you, of course, look at this in a Taoist perspective, which is basically you kind of, get above and elevate to a certain level to look at the bigger picture. Maybe, just maybe, you win this game if you ever come to a contest, against whoever self-claim as the, either the best or the, the better, whatever. And there are always some people who want to come to top you and to replace you from that spotlight. So this, I guess, it's very easy to relate to, and of course in the ancient Chinese society, people, it's part of the upbringings of almost all the, I guess, at least the literate families, and of course those who may not be literate, but they learn from the edification through Chinese theaters. Um, the virtue of all stories in ancient Chinese society is you don't want to self-claim ever as the best in anything, because if you do, you would attract the undesired attentions, and they will, I guess, there will be some contests, following from the time that you self-claim as the best. So people, it's not just a nice, virtue for the ancient Chinese to remain humble. It's not about that. It's really kind of self-protection. You don't, self-proclaim something, and then you kind of reduce the chances from getting into conflict with, other people for whatever reason, would like to find out who is actually better between you and the next bunch of people out there, right? And as I mentioned in the previous session, in ancient Chinese society, you would not want to make any enemies out of anyone, because once that you don't want to have beef with anyone, because once you do, it's going to be generations of problem to deal with. So I guess I went a little further to give you the interpretation of the I guess the 8 Chinese characters following the first 9 that we covered in the previous 2 sessions. And let's get a little more, I guess, examples there. We mentioned about the Chinese game Go. We mentioned that before, and I did point out that even in the contemporary China today, people prefer to play Go game against not just a worthy match, but actually, the other side, hopefully, way better, because that's the only way you learn. And I guess, you improve and you get better faster, right? That way. So it doesn't really matter. You lose every game against this, better rivalry. It's not even rivalry. Actually, we would see, the other side, if they're so much better, we see them as the master, so we could learn from them. So that, I hope, tells us, about what is, I guess, better at anything. It does really not represent more than just a point of time in a long process that momentarily the status you somehow manage to occupy. So if you look at the things in this perspective, you will, I guess, find it a lot easier to deal with your own ego, because a lot of time in contemporary, I guess, any country in the I guess industrial societies, people are so easy to get so competitive, all fired up, right? So let's just say, that's the old saying: you win the battle, but you lose the war. And that's something in English, so we could all relate to easily. But then let's see if we could define other examples to basically become the I guess cases in this point. I guess I could use the let's say my own practice in a little bit, a teeny tiny bit when I was way much younger, right? In the Tai Chi sword, I guess that's not really, well, I don't know if it is, I would, I would hesitate to call it martial art, but it is martial art. But that's apparently the way I learned was not meant to be any kind of attacking tactics. I guess I saw it more as like a physical exercises. Of course, it could become art, killing art. But in any case, was I good? Well, comparing to the other kids following the same master, I think I was not the worst. But that was just the start of the start, right? I wasn't even really into the door yet. But with that little, very limited exposure to it, and now, watch on YouTube, you would see a lot of videos, there uploaded, which, basically martial art, related. You can see a lot of that. I guess, by getting or having been used to the way I was taught by my master, I guess I could spot a little imperfections here and there. So what does that say, or what does that suggest for me? It's almost impossible to get perfection now that all this social media video and the people had actually today had no problem uploading as versus the Kung Fu Man before. So it's all out there, right, in the public spotlight, so everybody could see. And of course, I could cite a whole lot of technical reasons to point out where it was imperfect, comparing to what my own master, this is a long time ago, showed me how things should have been done. Of course, if you go visit certain places in China today, you could still see the real Kung Fu, at least for the show part. I don't know in reality how actually they work, the way they were taught and practiced, but they sure look a whole lot better than the ones on YouTube, right? But that's what I could tell as far as, drawing from my very, very limited little, I guess, insight somehow, if that qualifies at all. But hey, this is something, there's no end to it. What is good enough? I think there's never good enough in the martial art practice. You can never be good enough, right? What helps is today we don't hear about people set up their showdown here and there between the different I guess schools of martial arts, and try to set clear who at that certain time out of certain contests became the best, because that a lot of people get killed by doing that. So I guess at least I don't hear about it. So in a way, I guess if you can be relaxed about all this, who's the better, who is the best, you could save yourself a lot of trouble. In fact, I think we could relate this. It does not have to be a stop at martial art. This could be in a lot of different fields out there. I guess at least the Chinese who wore deeply influenced by the Confucianism, always very competitive. But at least in the old days, the Taoism was there to balance out. So people could, with certain studies of the Taoism teaching, you could always, loosen up a little bit. You don't really have to kill yourself with all that burden of, the determination to become the best. Would that be a nice driver, though, to give the best performance? At least you give your best shot. I don't see anything wrong with that. But if that becomes a way of life, with no breaks, there's no chance for, stop and smell the roses, then you really want to ask yourself, what is the purpose of becoming the best, which you have to constantly update yourself to maintain that status, right? I had a childhood friend back then in China, and he was very good in ping pong, and so he became champion of ping pong in Beijing City again and again. And then he told me, he said the first time before, anything else, he just got there and became the champion of the city of Beijing over ping pong. He said, no, that seemed easy. Why was that easy? Because he had no psychological burden, right? Basically, he just, gave his best shot and performed well, and bang, there, he got it, the top honor. But then, ever since that day, he became so defensive, and he was constantly living in the fear that he might lose that spot. And this is, long before he went back there for the second match of next year. And that was a hell to live through for the entire year, let alone that very day. So he was able to, keep his spot there the next year, and then the next year. But all the years that he was trying to do that, to maintain his, spotlight, that was a lot, for him to, invest into. So was there much of either childhood or whatever you call it, in a teenage, much fun? Not really. Everything was basically 100% ping pong. Is that justified? For him, I think it was, because, he really loved that honor. I don't know if he still would, see the same way today at this age. We were of exact same age. But the thing is, he did not do that for a living for too long. I think before he turned 20, he already got out of that profession. So he had a lot of, other things in his life, afterwards. So which made a big difference. And of course, for that kind of sport, you don't get to stay in that profession in your natural lifetime. But in any case, I think in a way he was lucky, because he did not have to kill himself all his lifetime over one single thing. Well, at least that's what it appears to me as. So exactly how does he, think about that? We did not talk about that. I don't think I will ever, bring that even up with him. But I guess I just shared with you my own perspective on things like that. But here's the thing. If you are so dedicated, so deep into the Confucianism, that spotlight justified everything. And in English we say, ends justify means. So, you know, from the perspective of Confucianism, yeah, basically at least, hey, you gave it a shot and you actually succeeded. Um, but if you look at this from the, I guess, perspective of a Taoist, then you ask yourself, yes, it is worthy for me to, try a couple of times and actually lucky enough to succeed a couple of times. Great. But would I want to have my entire life dedicated to one single thing and miss out on all the others? I'm not so sure about that. So anyway, I just leave all this to you, and hopefully that would help you, relate to and hopefully even connect. So until next session, ciao.